We've got a lot to cover. Okay? Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I want to go over a few things that we covered last class, the second 5 classes. We're going to have 3 more classes. But I want to cover a few things. I want to go over maybe some new ideas that we didn't cover the last time. So let me ask you this. Is there anyone here who hasn't been here before for the first time? Is there anyone here for the first time? Would you mind standing, please? Please. Okay, let's start with you, sir. Could you tell us your name and why you're here?
My name is Jonathan, and I'm here because my mother is here.
Mine works. Good job. I've heard a lot about you, Jonathan. Okay, thank you. Please.
Yeah, this is Jing Hui. I came here because my friend Alice introduced me to come here to listen. Yeah.
Good, thank you. And would you please tell us your name?
My name is Alice, and I just happened to call you yesterday to make an appointment.
Okay.
And then Mary told me this great news.
Oh,
Great
good.
class.
Very good, very good. Jane, would you mind introducing yourself?
Okay, I'm Jane, and I'm a friend of Roger's, and he's invited me to come. And I heard you at the, what was it?
Fair.
The fair.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. Well, we had a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot of work to cover today. And I want to go back over some of the things that we started the last class in December. Okay? This class is primarily about prosperity. Prosperity on all levels. Prosperity means to me health, wealth, relationships, and the time to enjoy it. If we don't have all 4 of those items, we're wasting our time. And they should be working consecutively at the same time, otherwise we're not in a state of prosperity. Now, the problem is that we are humans having a spiritual experience. So we have a number of things that are trying to interfere with that prosperity. And the things that we've talked about in the past is coming from our human side. Okay. We've said this before, we've said it time after time, but for the benefit of the new people. This spine is an antenna. This antenna is sending out information just like any other antenna does. It's the second law of antenna theory, that every antenna transmits and receives information. So it's transmitting every thought that you have from the brain, every emotion you have from the heart, and every spiritual issue you have about an inch below the navel is being transmitted and received all across the world and beyond. The problem with not having the prosperity that we all deserve, that we are all accustomed to or should have, is the fact that our human side, our brain and heart, is interfering with that. Okay, we've said that our logic or our emotions is tending to create problems, right? The purpose of the class has been for the last year and a half to get past that brain and heart area and get us down into the spirit area where we are connected to God. Now, my definition of God is God, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit, angels. I don't care what your definition is, but I want to recognize that there's some element of the divine that's always working to help us. Okay? That's very important. So the class is designed to get past this brain and heart area, get down to the divine, and allow it to guide us. Now, for you brain people out there, and for you heart people, I'm a heart person, there are brain people out here, when I'm talking about allowing the divine to help us, I'm saying that whatever the issues are, we go to God, we let God guide us. We allow God to tell us what to do. And I mean it just the way I'm saying it. So once we get that information as to what God wants us to do, then we can go to the brain and create a logical plan. Then we can couple that logical plan with the heart, our emotional side with our feelings. Then we have brain, heart, and spirit working together as one unit. Then we're sending out a very powerful signal. Then we can manifest things on a very high level, right? And that's the purpose of what we're doing. And that's the purpose of living this life. Now, the problems that I've seen is in this brain and heart area. Well, about mid-December last year, I was watching a show called The Healer. I'll take you back over this. It's called The Healer. It's a reality show. Has anyone seen that? Good. So you've caught it since then. Very good. Very good. Okay. The Healer is a gentleman from Australia. He's a young man, probably in his late 30s. And he's brought in to help doctors solve difficult cases. Okay? So the show that I saw, I only caught the last half hour of it. There were two people that the healer was called in to help. One was a very large man. He was a professional wrestler. And he couldn't move his arm. Remember I talked about this last year. He couldn't move his arm. He had frozen shoulder syndrome. The doctors had spent over 2 years working on this man, chiropractors, medical doctors. No one was able to help this man move his shoulder. He could barely move it out about this far. Now they showed x-rays on the TV so you could see the degeneration that was going on in the shoulder area. But the problem is I've seen a lot worse shoulders than this with no problems about moving. Okay, he couldn't move his shoulder. So they bring the healer in, and the doctors are looking at this man. He's very unassuming. He walks up to the gentleman who's having the problem. He asks him a few questions about what the problem is, when did it start, a few things like this. He says, move your arm out as far as you could. He goes out about this far. And he goes, okay. He says to the doctors, I'm going to take over, I'm going to do my work. So he stands behind the man, the wrestler. He stands behind him, puts his hands on him like this. And you can see that he's generating energy, putting it into this gentleman's body, the wrestler's body. Within a few minutes, he walks back away from this wrestler. All the doctors are looking at each other going like, oh yeah, something happened, right? And the wrestler's going like, what happened? Because I don't feel anything, there's no difference. You didn't do anything, barely even touch me. So the healer said, move your arm. And the wrestler goes, I can't move my arm. He said, move your arm. So he moves it out a little bit, moves it up a little bit more, and a little bit more, and it's like up right about here. Now, he couldn't move beyond this for over 2 years. Okay? So the healer comes back, touches him again for another few minutes, tells him now to rotate the arm, like you're throwing a ball. The guy says, I can't do it. He said, rotate your arm. So that's what he does. He rotates his arm like he's throwing a ball, because for the last more than 2 years now, he hasn't been able to play with his 2 small children. Okay? Well, now everyone in the room is thinking the healer is doing something magical. I mean, they are amazed. The doctors are amazed. The patient is amazed. Okay, I'm scanning all this. I'm asking his spirit what's going on through all of this. There was a second person he was working on. Another young man who had trouble with his knee. He couldn't move or bend his knee very much. He couldn't go up a hill. He couldn't go up steps. Again, he couldn't play with his children. He had young children. And the doctors are baffled. It's been over 2 years, no help. They don't know what to do, so they bring him in for this person. He does basically the same thing. Touches around the knee, tells him to move his knee. Sure enough, he can move his knee. Now, he takes both guys outside, and he tells one to walk up that hill, the one who had the knee problems, walk up that hill, and the man's going, I can't do that. He goes, walk up that hill. So he goes walking up that hill with no trouble. He goes walking up the hill, he comes running down the hill, and he's perplexed. No pain, no problems at all. None. No. So now, about 3 weeks later, the TV crew goes back to these 2 guys, and we can see the gentleman was having trouble with the shoulder. He's playing ball with his children, ball with the knees. He's running with his kids. No problems, no pain, nothing. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, I started asking their spirits what was going on. And what was going on was, in both cases, and in every one of the people the healer was working on, yes, these people had physical problems. The guy couldn't move his arm, the other couldn't move his knee, there were other issues. But the real problem was energy, energetic stories. All of these people had energetic stories. The stories were so profound that they were stopping these people from actually performing what they were born to do. Move, enjoy life, do whatever you can think of. Okay? So what the healer was doing, because the healer doesn't know what he's doing. He'll tell you this on TV. He says, I don't know what I'm doing. All I do is I put my hands on someone. It's either going to work or not work. I mean, he's telling you the truth. But what he was doing was he was scrambling their stories. He was scrambling their stories so that they could not recognize their stories. So when the wrestler now, when he couldn't identify with the story that was trying to keep his arm from moving, when he couldn't identify with that anymore, he was free. He was free. Okay. So I started asking, because this is something now very personal. What do we do about healing? Because there's only one of him to go around. There's only one healer. Okay. Right now, he's hard to get to. But I believe that God made us so that we heal ourselves. Okay? I believe that God made us to help overcome all of our own problems working with God. Okay? That's what I believe. And I believe that God will help us overcome those problems. So I started asking God, what can we do that would be even better than what the healer is doing, that we could all do, that would work very, very well, and would be very easy for us to do and repeatable so that we can do it whenever we needed to change our lives. Because I've seen that the stories run one of two ways. The stories either run about wrong thinking processes or curses. It's either one or the other. Every one of us in this room either has a curse we're trying to overcome or wrong thinking, and it didn't come from mom or dad. I can't use them as a scapegoat, okay? If it's a wrong mode of thinking, it came probably 40 to 60, 80,000 years ago. That's been passed on from one generation to another. If it's a curse, so far it's going back a minimum of 1 million years, from one generation to another, at least 1 million years. The longest so far has been over 2 million years. Okay? Now, just imagine that what I'm saying is true, that this really exists. Okay? Because I can't explain any other way that would try to prevent us from having the type of life that we deserve. And when I see the healer and I see the show, and I know these people aren't faking, and their lives can be changed that quickly, what could it do for us? Because as a doctor, 90+% of the people that walk through my doors are not having physical problems. They're having energetic issues. Energetic issues, meaning mental, emotional, spiritual issues. And none of us are immune from that, not one of us. Okay? Very few people I see actually have a physical problem to start. Now, it may start off as an energetic issue, and then when we resolve that, it may go into a physical one, like diet, exercise, water, sleep. But in general, most cases, it's going to be an energetic issue first. And when I do work with the audiences at the different shows, probably 95% of the time, it's going to be an energetic issue. Once in a while, someone comes up with an actual physical issue. So when I see people, like as I'm looking out over the group right now, I see a scale like this above every one of your heads. Every one of you has got a scale like this above your head right now. It looks just pretty much like this. Okay? Now, if I see, as you're talking to me about issues, whatever the problems are, and remember I'm looking at you, so I'm looking at the scale. If I see this needle moving over towards the left side of you, then I know we're dealing with energetic issues first. Okay? If I see this needle moving over to the right side of you, then I know we're dealing with physical issues first. It's really very nice, very simple. We can all do this. Every one of us was born to do this. Okay? So what's neat is, when I was checking those people, like I said, that the healer was working on, every one of them had their meter, that needle, pointing way over to the left side, into that energetic area. And after he started working on them, the needle started moving more to the mid-side, about the middle of the scale, and about somewhere over here. But they were way over there in the beginning, okay? Which meant that they were improving. So I asked God, what could I do to help with this? Because I've been trained as a scientist and also as a health practitioner. And he gave me some answers. And that was last month, and I began putting this together. And that's what we're going to play with tonight. In other words, we're going to have a way of working with a model, and the model is about healing, based on what I saw that night, about how we get sick, and more importantly, how do we stay well. Okay? Now, on your sheet, on the sheets that are on your table, you see at the top of the sheet, you see the model. Okay? Now, the model, and this came from watching that show, is that we all have an energetic field surrounding us, every one of us. Okay? At the time of conception, that field was created. Okay? At the time of conception, that field was created. That field, I believe, gave us the genetic information necessary for us to become who we are. Because we do not have enough genetic information on our genes or chromosomes to create us. That field is intelligent. Now, I believe that field came from God. Okay, that's my opinion. Okay? I haven't seen any other opinion I think is better than that. It's very simple. So that field began to create us. That field is staying with us every moment. It's an energetic field. It gives us information all the time. Okay? All you have to do is ask. Okay? So that energetic field, if it has problems with the field, in other words, if we have holes in that field, now we begin to create holes in our physical body. We begin to create problems with our physical body because that field feeds the cells of our physical body. It's amazing how this works. I said that if we just had, there are 26 letters to the English alphabet. If you remove just one letter, the letter U, you would destroy over 3,000 words in the English alphabet. Okay? Over 3,000 words. A small tear or hole in that energetic field could create problems way beyond anything we know of at this time. Okay? And you can actually see it. It's the auric field. You can actually see those holes in the people's fields. So I believe from that field surrounding us, that energetic field, that goes into what's called the chakra system. Now, there are a minimum of 7 chakras that go through the body. Okay, we know that. And that's, I believe, is the intermediary between God and our physical body, the chakra system. Okay? Now, they spin, and they're transferring that energy into the acupuncture meridians. Now, the acupuncture meridians, there are 14 of them that run lengthwise through our body. They're like channels that get the energy down to different parts of our body. And from there, it goes into the physical body. It goes into the different organs. I believe it goes into the deep parts of the organs first, like the colon, kidneys, liver, this type of thing. Fills those up with energy, goes more up to the surface of the skin, muscles, bones, connective tissue at the surface, and then feeds back into that external energetic field. It's a beautiful system the way God created it. Okay? So when the healer was putting his hands on those people, he was, in effect, beginning to improve this external energetic field that was surrounding them. Okay. Now, I also asked a number of questions because I didn't know much last month about this. I hurriedly got this idea together. But I started asking some questions a few nights ago about these stories, which we all have. I asked, where do these stories affect the most? Well, guess where they affect the most? Look at that diagram that you have right there. You see the energetic field that goes into the cells. Where do you think, along that diagram, that our thinking, and let's call them stories, these negative stories, where do you think they affect the most?
The spine, the cells of our body.
Okay, cells, you're saying cells. Say, anyone else? Organs, okay. Anyone else? Pardon me? Chakras, good. Okay, all those are good statements, but where it affects the most is the energetic field first. We're carrying our stories surrounding us first. If you've ever walked into a room and you look at people, sometimes you get really good vibrations off of people, right? Sometimes you do. Okay, sometimes you don't. And the reason why we like each other is because our energetic fields are matching. Stories, non-stories, they're matching. And if we don't like each other, a lot of times it's because those stories are repulsive, just like magnets be repulsive. Okay. They start in the energetic field, and then it runs downhill. Then it goes into the chakras. Then it goes into the meridians. Then it goes into the next area, just like we have on the diagram, it runs downhill, those stories. But the most important area that we have to affect to make changes in us is that external field, this external field. So we were born with a field that was, I believe, perfect, because I believe it came from God. Then we inherited all this information that came from our ancestors and the people around us and the stories that everyone else has. So now what we did, basically, we have this field as we started growing, this field around us. Think of this as our body, and this is that energetic field surrounding us. So now this perfect field becomes saturated with poison, if you will. Poison coming from our ancestors, from their stories, from what we've learned in this life, you name it. So now we have a combination of a perfect field and these stories constantly saturating the insides of our body. Now, I believe that if our external energetic field is strong enough, and the stories aren't curses or things like this, we could probably go for quite a while without harming ourselves. But guess what? We can't go forever. At some point, whether we have curses affecting us or just negative beliefs, we are setting the stage for self-sabotage. All of us. Self-sabotage. I've done plenty of it. Maybe you've done some of it, but I know I have. Okay? And I don't want to do it anymore. The purpose of what we're doing is to get rid of the self-sabotage. The purpose of what we're doing is to really get out of this brain or heart area, because I believe the brain and heart area is one of the foremost areas that hold on physically to those old negative stories, because the Spirit's not going to accept that. The Spirit comes from God. God's perfect. God's not going to accept those old negative stories. So we have to figure out a way to purify this energy around us. And once we do that, then that energy goes from around us, inside of us, to heal us, and then comes back outside to create a better field. And if we do it right, from what I'm seeing is, it becomes permanent. It becomes permanent. What do you think? Interesting? Okay. Now, any questions? Any questions on what we said? Any of them? No questions? Please.
What do you mean permanent? If the person later on out of balance, it will not affect anything?
Good question. Good question. Okay, here's what I've seen so far. Okay. There is a certain depth to every problem we have. Whatever the symptoms are, there's a certain depth to that. And that's called an energetic depth. Now, it could be from negative stories, it can be from curses, I don't care what it is. So every time we do this technique, we're going into the depth of this poison. Now, how far can we go at one time? I've seen anywhere from 10 to 25%, okay, out of 100%. That's what I've seen so far for the last 2.5 weeks, okay? Now, I've checked the people that we've done some work on over the last 2 weeks or so, and so far that's held. That has not been refilled. It hasn't come back up. It stayed, whatever they finished at when they did this technique, it stayed that way over the last 2 weeks or so, 2.5 weeks. It has not come back. Okay.
It doesn't revert. It doesn't revert.
Right, right.
Do you think it might grow?
Grow meaning,
In the best way?
well, it's
Continue.
possible.
Continue to heal.
And that's possible, that's possible. But realize what's happening though. Every time we do this, there's only so much your physical body can handle. The brain story, the heart story, is a story, and they want to stay alive. They want to keep all that negative information alive. They want to stay alive. It's an entity just like you and I. So now we come in, we start doing this therapy, we start changing all of this. It knows that things are changing. It's only going to limit us. It's going to limit us to a certain level that we can go into these stories at one time. I think that if we went too far at one time, you could actually go into retrograde amnesia. You wouldn't even know who you were, because our stories have defined us. We can only go far enough to change that so we can keep our memory and not over-stress ourselves from those changes, from what I've seen. That's what I've seen. It takes roughly about a week or two for the person to be able to go into the next treatment, to go deeper. So roughly on the order of 1 to 2 weeks. Can't do it any sooner than that. They need time to integrate. That's what I'm seeing so far. Please, no. Yeah.
So after you have one of these sessions, and they're pretty amazing sessions, are we also supposed to not do any other therapies until, like massage or light therapies or anything like that? Or is there a conflict there?
Not at all. Good question. Not at all. In fact, it's only going to help us. They won't help us get any deeper than where we are, but they won't interfere with it either. Okay? And that's one of the things that's important about this. It takes the right combination in order to make a dent in those stories, because we're talking about stories that are anywhere from 40,000 to several million years old. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Okay. So, any other, I'm sorry, you had a question too.
My question was, when you're looking at the human body, why do you say that the spirit is in the lower abdomen pelvis region?
Well, if you look at what's called center of mass, and you draw lines through the body, and you ask where in the body does every part of the body balance? Where's the one point? Right there. You go back into Eastern tradition, okay? No matter what part of Eastern tradition we evaluate, it's always here. It's always here. And when I had a dream years ago, and started talking about God and God living in us, it showed me this area, right here. It's never failed me to work. If I do my scanning, and I'm scanning people from this area, I always get the correct answer. If I move up to heart or brain, it'll always be wrong. Always wrong. Our job, every one of our jobs is one area. Our job is to move from our thinking process, or our heart process, our feeling process first, and begin to move ourselves down into this spirit area, so we can actually see ourselves functioning. In other words, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm not talking to you from up here, I'm not talking to you from here, I'm talking to you from here. I'm moving from here, talking to you from here. Everything I'm doing to evaluate all of you right now is from here. It's from here. If I come up to my feeling area, heart, or I come up to my brain, I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong. I don't care how you justify it, you're going to be wrong. I'll be wrong, you'll be wrong. Okay? I've been at this too long. Okay? I don't like to be wrong. Okay? God didn't make us to be wrong. God made us to give us the correct answers all the time. And I mean it just as like I'm saying it. This year for us can be a tremendously good year, simply because if we can get out of our brain and heart area and really turn this over to a force, whatever you want to call it, I call it God, that wants to guide us, your life will be changed forever, and will be changed for the better. This has never lied to me, it's never criticized me, it's never judged me. Now, our brain, my brain has certainly judged me and criticized me. My heart certainly has criticized and judged me. But my spirit has never. Your spirit won't either. Okay? The trick is, and this is where I believe all man-made religions have problems, is the fact that, and I don't care what religion we're talking about, is they're all good. But the problem is, when they talk about finding God, you can't find God from the brain. There is no God up here because it's a human side. By definition, there's no God. You can't find God from the heart side. By definition, it's the human side. There's no God. Okay? You can only find God from the spirit side, and if we can move these two areas away by using these techniques, then we'll get our answers very quickly. It's amazing how well this works.
Okay, so when we're talking about the stories, okay,
Right.
we're also talking about curses. We know that words are energy and words can create, right?
Right.
So as we're going through this process, we're healing those stories,
Right.
dismissing the stories, repealing those curses.
Right.
Whoever, however many thousands of years ago,
Right.
said whatever words or did whatever things that inadvertently or on
Right.
purpose caused that to be considered a curse.
Right.
Is that healing going backwards in time as well, so that everybody that was affected back through our ancestors are also being?
If they would allow it. If they will allow it. Everyone has to make a choice. Okay? They have to make a choice. They may allow it, they may not. Okay? Now, if it's deceased ancestors and they're already in heaven, there's no problem. Not worried about that. But it does heal the energy going back as far as possible. Okay? Let me say one last thing here, and this is important since you brought this up. Without thinking about this, have any people here seen the St. Jude hospital commercials where they show these poor children suffering with cancer? Have you seen those? Okay, I saw those several nights. Every time, every child, I don't care who the child was, how old or young, they were cursed. Every child was cursed. Now, have you seen Operation Smile on TV, where they go into different countries and they correct balance? Every child they brought on TV, and this was 10, 15 children I saw, every one of them was cursed. Every one, cursed. So you want to see the effects of how dangerous this is, there it is. The SPCA, okay, the SPCA, they're showing all these animals that are abused. I mean, these things are heart-wrenching. Every one of those animals that was abused was cursed. Now, I'm not pretending to understand. I can't believe like one dog cursed another dog, okay? But most likely, the owner of that dog was cursed. The dog is trying to protect the owner. It's really to sacrifice its life for that person. Okay. That's what I believe is happening. But they're willing to take on the suffering for that person. It's amazing, absolutely amazing how. This is the only thing that makes any sense to me about why children that are barely born are having all these problems. There's nothing else that will describe it. It's not genetics. It's not toxicity, like physical toxicity that's doing this. That's ridiculous. There has to be an energetic platform that's creating this problem. And unless we give it its due, we are going to perpetuate the curse, we're going to perpetuate the wrong ideas, and we're going to be suffering the rest of our lives, and we're going to pass that on to our family, our children, too. Bless you.
So, since let's say we've got, curse from the past, right? Can we also create curses for the future generations?
Can we help them, you mean?
No, I mean, are we, hurting, say, our future generations by maybe, inadvertently cursing or doing something?
Well, obviously, we could do things like that, but I don't believe any person here in this room would do that. I mean, that's always possible, but I don't believe anyone in this room would do that. But if we don't understand what's going on, we could be passing, because it was passed on to us from our ancestors, we can easily pass it on to them, and then we wonder why they're feeling so badly. And all they're doing is mimicking what we created in our lives.
Right.
Okay? So you begin to understand where we're going with this. Okay. Now, so far, it's been working pretty well. I've got about 25, 30 people that we've worked on. We've gotten some pretty good results. From the people that have been worked on, is there anyone here who wants to make a comment about anything that they've seen?
I can tell you that we went on our vacation, and as soon as we left town, it was like all of a sudden I started having really bad pains on my left leg. And it got so severe that I could not even put weight on my leg. I had to borrow our uncle's cane to walk the last couple of days. So in desperation, I texted him, and I said, I hate to bother you, but I need to know whether this is something dangerous, so I need to seek help, or what's going on. And he had already been working on me. He had already been working on me. And at one point, it was so bad that I just laid down on the floor, put my legs up, and I grabbed the video, the YouTube that Mary records, just to be able to go through this process, because I was in so much pain. I could not even do any connection to spirit. Nothing. I was like, I couldn't. It was that bad. And then within the next couple of days, I actually could feel when he was working on it. And by the time we came back, like within a couple of days, I was better. So that was pretty impressive. That was one. And then he worked on me one day this week. And right before that, we were talking about a situation that we've been having a lot of resistance trying to get information from this professional. And he says, well, let's do this, and you'll see after this is done, you'll call and you're going to get the right answers. So the next morning, I didn't have to call the gentleman. He called me and gave me all the information I needed without me even having to call. And I sent him a message saying, that was pretty amazing. Yeah.
What caused it? Do you know? What caused her pain?
Feel free to talk about it.
Well, let's just say for the moment that it's a curse that comes through her father's side of the family. Okay. And we have to be very careful about curses because they're the worst. Because I went through that myself, a curse. And I know how it affected my life. So this is serious stuff.
It was very serious.
Right.
It was very painful. He's never seen me in that much pain. I've never seen me in that much pain. It was bad.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Well, first of all, my cold in my body was the part of the process.
Sarah, would you mind standing so people could hear
We
us?
worked on was the being able to keep any money I might receive. And I was trying to figure out how to pay my taxes, and so I got 500 here and 500 there and 800 there and 500 here. And so I was really happy about that. And I thought, oh, maybe this is really working. Well, then over Christmas, the day before Christmas, I cleaned the oven, and then I tried to put the racks in, and I threw my back out, I guess, or it went out. And then I laid on a hot pad all of Christmas Eve, and then I finally got dinner on the table at Christmas Day. And then I reached down to pick up a box, and it got worse again. Well, all during this time, I laid in bed, when I was laying in bed, and I would just do my oneness with spirit. And first time I laid down, it was like I felt something go back in, kind of. And then I thought, well, I wonder if this has anything to do with this other stuff. And then I thought, well, and I can't really tell if it's my back or my hip. And so then I finally realized it was the muscle kind of between there that evidently there's a nerve goes through, so I was in a lot of pain. But it was really, and then after I laid and was really quiet and really meditated a lot, day and night, really pretty much, it was really interesting how much better I felt. And so I really feel like feeling that oneness with spirit is very healing.
It is. If we go back to Ruthie's story, Ruthie, if we looked at her before this all occurred, the pain, you would have seen that this arrow would have been far to her left side in the energetic area. That's what was creating the pain. Cecile's issue, same thing, far to the left side, energetic issues. Now, it created physical problems, but the primary issue was an energetic imbalance coming from some story. Okay? And that's what we're talking about right now. Anyone else? Please, Sharon.
In Ruthie's case,
Sharon, would you mind standing?
so we started working on all this, and all of a sudden she has a pain she's never felt before. Did she open herself up for this to come?
Yeah, it opened the door. It opened the door. Glad you brought that up. Obviously, you gain, for everything you gain, there's also things you have to be careful of. So far, what I'm seeing is that as we're beginning to go into the story, and I don't care whether it's a curse or just incorrect thinking, it's possible. This hasn't happened to everyone, but especially for people that are dealing with curses. It seems like dark forces, Satan, whatever you want to call it, could start attacking. In most cases, they're attacking around you. They're not attacking you in most cases. In other words, they may make people late or create more problems around you, or it'll feel like things are getting worse. Okay, but that's this energy, Satan, if you will, that's trying to stop you from moving forward to get rid of these problems. Just like brain and heart is attempting to stop you from moving forward because it doesn't want to die or change, and I believe they're there, these demons are trying to do the same thing. So it is possible, a small percentage of people so far have experienced this. You gain everything you gain. There's something else you have to be careful about. Okay? It depends on what's happened at the time. Yes?
Could I say something?
Oh,
I've often read in some of my readings that as you're working on your spiritual ascension, that in order to that you really can't ascend from one level to the other unless you are ready to release and let go of things that are holding you from doing that.
Right.
And that would include perhaps things that are not from this plane of existence, but from way back there. So the letting go, I mean, I think to me that it's just like sometimes even just when you have a little illness, you'll get worse before you get better. I think this is just part of it. It's that release that has to happen before you can get to where you need to be in order to...
Yep. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. These are all good points. I'm learning like you are. But sure.
How do you get rid of curses?
Well, the only way I've seen so far, it's a relationship between you and God. You and God have to get rid of it. As far as I can tell, I can't get rid of your curse. Okay. Now we can help, we can encourage, we can hope that they'll begin to understand, why is my life going so hard? What's going on here? It can't really be this difficult. It shouldn't be. And they'll start asking questions at that point, then maybe we have a chance to talk to them. And if they have a better explanation to explain why their life isn't working, then fine. But so far, I haven't gotten a good one. Okay? And it doesn't have to be about illness. It could be about money. It could be about friends, it could be about love, romance, it could be about relationships, it could be about anything that is becoming more and more difficult. Anything can be caused by this. Okay? But anything that's appearing to be overly difficult, you really want to look at. Yes, sir.
So is it fair to say then that multiple issues could be resolved by first resolving that energy issue?
Huge number of other issues. Unfathomable. I'm sorry, this is fun. I just love every part of it. I'm really sad when I see Christmas go. And I love hearing all the different music that they play at Christmas. So I went to this restaurant about a week ago. They stopped playing Christmas music. I didn't think much about it, but I realized they stopped playing it. I go to the same restaurant today, and they're playing Christmas music. I know this is working. I was thinking I'd call a class and we'd have it over there, just so I could listen a little longer. So I realize these are small things, but they begin to create the concept of we were born to have a much easier life. We don't need to make it this difficult. So let's go into the process right now so we can bring some people up and we can get going with this so you can experience some of this, because that's all to help you and help them. When we're sending out that type of energy that's good for you and good for them, how do you think they're going to respond?
Positively.
Right. They're going to look at you, they're going to wonder, what are you doing? I want to spend more time with you. They won't even know why, but everything about you is going to go better and it's going to open up a lot more doors. Plus, you can send out this energy anywhere in the universe and let it begin to help you with people that are difficult. Now, we're not doing it to get an advantage over them. We're only working with them so that they can be more civil and we can work with them better so we can help them and they can help us. Now, if you've got a brain who's antagonistic, we have a heart that's equally antagonistic, and they're not even cooperating, and now we have a spirit that's different than the other two areas, and we're sending out mixed signals, what do you think you're going to get?
Chaos.
Chaos. Chaos. One of the things I started asking about Trump, and I don't care what you think about Trump, but I ask, why in the world is he being attacked like this? Well, simple. He's been cursed. He's been cursed. And I ask, well, who cursed him? Well, I thought it might be Hillary, but it wasn't. I didn't look there. It's Obama. Obama cursed him. Now, I'm not trying to make anyone out to be a villain or victim. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying these curses are real. I'm saying that you can curse someone and create problems for them and for you, because I guarantee, even though it's affecting Trump, it's going to come back and affect Obama.
Yep.
Okay? So we don't escape this stuff. We can, if we understand it, it can drastically improve the quality of our life. If we ignore it, well, I know what I've been through, I know what other people have been through, and I don't want to wish that on anyone. You can do better.